Hello there, Clapperheads, and welcome to a brand new edition of ClapperTalks. I am Nick Dorian, and today is a very special day because this is the beginning of our guest section of ClapperTalks. And with me today is none other than Raj Mahal.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be the first guest, I believe, on the show, right?
Yes.
And it's also like super awesome to see the evolution of your podcasting journey.
Thank you.
From your previous podcasts. We're not going to mention the name because they're not under this umbrella, but can I say the name?
Geeks in Malaysia.
That's right.
Yes, we'll always talk about Geeks in Malaysia.
Sure.
That is, as much as this is my baby, that's also my baby. That's where we got our start.
Yes.
Geeks in Malaysia.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Now, to get into things, you have come from a background of radio. You are a background of hosting as well. And also you have delved into D&D and Magic the Gathering, which I've been seeing all over your Instagram, which is fantastic because I feel that's a community that is rarely shown this day and age. But before we get into all that, how did you first get your start? Like what inspired you to start getting into like radio and stuff like that? Because you were studying marketing, right? In
Yes.
Taylor's.
In Monash University,
Monash, yes.
the one in Sunway. So I was already creating content and doing live hosting since I was in college. So about the age of 18 or so, I started doing like live hosting. So hosting events on stage. And I was doing some content with some friends back then. And radio was not something I planned to do in my career path or career trajectory. So when the offer came, it was very unexpected. But I thought to myself, like, hey, you know what? Not many people get this opportunity.
Yeah.
I can always go and try for a few years. And if I enjoy it, cool, let's do it for a very long time. And if I don't, there's always the way out lah, right? So it really came by accident. In fact, the radio job came because of a joke that I made. Every year, Hits has this radio audition, right?
Yes.
It's an online competition where you just have to read a script and you have to react to it. So I decided to read the script in Bahasa and I was just like making fun of the whole situation. And one of the bosses in Astro saw the video and said, okay, you go and call this guy and you go and tell him, oh, you think it's very easy, is it, being a radio announcer? You come and try for a week. So for a week, I was with Ian and Arnold, not paid, by the way, just showing up just for the experience at 5 a.m. in the morning, just to get a feel of what radio was, not knowing that it was secretly an audition.
Yeah.
And I got the call 1 year later to come in for the breakfast show.
1 year.
1 year later.
Did you expect it at all?
Well, they did sort of hint to me while I was there for a week, like, oh, we're looking for new announcers. Da, da, da. So like the hope was there, the excitement was there. And then there was just like no news for a very long time.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, never mind, maybe they were just saying it. But then true enough, after a year, I got the phone call. I was like, hell yes, let's go and try this out.
Now, speaking of Hits, I'm sure it had its challenges. I mean, you were there at 5 a.m. every day, right?
So I wake up at around 4:30, 4:45 every morning.
Yeah.
And I need to be in office by 5:30 or 5:40 latest.
Okay.
But I was always late, bro. I was always late.
What are the most common misconceptions about radio? Because people always see radio DJs and are like, oh, it must be such a lavish lifestyle. You just go on, you play music and you leave.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a lot more than that, right?
Oh man, it's a lot, dude. I think for the breakfast show especially is the new way you live your life. You know, waking up at like 4:30 every morning and then taking a shower and then make sure you are at work on time. You see, most people wake up in the morning, they have a cup of green tea, they meditate or they scroll on their phone. I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to be late. And then you go into the studio, you're like, blah, 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 all the way to like 11 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Like it does do something to your body and to your mind. It does. I am very proud to say I'm an early bird. I like waking up in the morning, but even I was challenged, bro, to do that, right? So that's definitely like a very big challenge.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other misconception is that people think like, wow, Raj, very nice way. You wake up early in the morning, by 11 a.m., you're done with work, then you can enjoy for the rest of the day. More often than not, that's not the case. On a good day, yes, by 11 or 12, you're back home. But on other days, you have shoots all the way to the afternoon or late evening, sometimes even at night. And you're supposed to be in bed by 8:30 at night to get your 8 hours of sleep, but that rarely happens. And, you know, lastly, it's a very fast-paced environment. You get the news first thing in the morning. You have to figure out what you're going to talk about. What's the dynamic going to be? How can you make a serious piece of news a bit more easy to digest with 4 people? Because our show had 4 announcers, ma.
Yeah.
So it's a whole bunch of challenges, lah, bro.
And was all those challenges your reason for leaving Hits? Or was there other factors that went into play?
Ooh, that's a juicy question, man.
I'm trying to dig it out of you.
There were many reasons lah why I decided to leave. How shall I say this? Turning on the PR side of my brain a bit, right? Well, one of the main reasons is, of course, my health was affected. I noticed like not having enough sleep. And it was a very stressful work environment. Many factors, of course, contributed to that. And I was still working on my own stuff after my job at Hits was done.
Yeah.
Right? I still wanted to shoot content. I still wanted to host live events because that's where I came from. That was my main bread and butter. And, you know, that's always going to be my first love, being on stage and shooting videos.
Yeah.
And I noticed I was trying to juggle everything and I was sacrificing myself in the process.
Yeah.
And I also noticed the quality of my work when it comes to hosting on stage and shooting videos were being affected. And that was one of the many reasons why I put my foot down and I said, enough is enough. It's good to just focus on what I know I truly enjoy and just make sure I do those things well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one of the many reasons lah.
Now, speaking of the fact that you were trying to do things outside of radio as well, that was my next question. Like, once you got into Hits, how did you begin juggling things like your content creation? You also had you were doing podcasts at the time with Amen, with TMT as well. How did that come into play with radio as well? How did you find the time for that?
So initially it was a real juggling act. I'll be done with work at 11, come back home for a 30-minute nap, and then start doing everything else, right? Lack of sleep, like you just don't sleep enough. You don't take care of your health. You stop exercising. You just eat whatever you want to eat to like calm the nerves and like manage your stress a bit. It was just dropping everything else just to focus on those things.
Yeah.
So I think at the start I did manage to balance it relatively well, but over time it just couldn't keep up.
Okay.
Right? Because radio itself is very demanding, and then when you're trying to be good on stage, when you're on stage, your brain is always on.
Yeah.
And then when you're shooting videos and you have a certain standard that you want to uphold, that's another expectation to manage.
Yeah.
Right? And especially once you enter into radio, you get a lot of different opportunities. More brands want to work with you. More people wanting to host their events. Yeah, I would say I balanced it by just sacrificing everything else, including time with family, which is like, now I notice is the most important thing, which I shouldn't have sacrificed.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, they're going to be there for you. And I was just thinking like, oh my goodness, I was in radio for 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And when I come back home, I stay with my girlfriend now. I come back home, I say hi to her, I sleep for a few like hours.
Yeah.
I tell myself half an hour, but it ends up being 2 hours. And then I wake up, I start shooting other stuff, you know, doing events, and there's no proper time spent with my family.
It really took a toll on your personal life.
Oh, it's big, bro. It's so big. So yeah, it was, and you know what made it even more difficult was that while I was still in radio, as much as there were parts that I enjoyed, there was another part of me that knew like, hey, there are other things I want to do out there. And I'm just starting to get really, really comfortable in this position, because the job, once you understand how to do it, it becomes easy. And of course, it pays well. So you start becoming really, really comfortable at the expense of all the other things that you want to do. So this voice was nagging me at the back of my mind, and eventually things just collapsed upon itself. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I think it's time for me to leave and do what I want to do.
Yeah. Now, speaking of all that, you also were doing a bunch of live hosting with Hits as well.
Yep.
In the events and school events and stuff like that. Was that the catalyst to get you to doing more live hosting events, or were you already doing that before Hits?
So I was doing that way before. In college was when I started hosting events. And it was kind of funny how I started, because I had a friend whose cousin used to work in Puma, right? The shoe, the sportswear brand.
Yeah.
And right after Form 5, when we entered into college, my friend would call us up and every 3 months he'd call us up and say, bro, my cousin needs help cleaning the store in the Puma office. So can you come and clean it? And we'll give you free shoes and a free t-shirt. So for college children, we're like, oh, hell yes, man. You got cool drip, you know, go and impress people. And I used to do that, bro, not free, but we used to get paid in shoes. So go and clean the store, vacuum, mop, and spend the whole day there. And we get a pair of shoes and 2 t-shirts, right? And we're like, yeah, all right, we hard, you know, rolling up into school.
It was like, hey, free labor.
Yeah, right, you know. So that was going on. So every 3 months we used to go and do that.
Yeah.
And at this time, also in college, I started hosting events. And whenever I hosted an event, no matter how small it was, I would post it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, I hosted this, hosted that. Thinking that, oh, maybe one day I can earn some side income from this, like, earn some extra pocket money here and there.
Yeah.
And so I kept on doing that. And the third time, I went to clean the storeroom in the Puma office. So this guy, the cousin, is a marketing director, right? He was like, hey, Raj, I notice you always hosting a lot of events here and there. And now when you clean my storeroom, you like to talk a lot also. You know, you say that, you want to come and host a Puma event for me or not?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure, okay. And I was like, okay, come on, you host an event. So I did that event, right? It was for a football boot launch. So I called a friend. I was like, hey, can you help me come and take photos, take videos of me hosting this event? You know, maybe I can put it in my portfolio or something.
Yeah.
So my friend came and helped me. So I had this footage. Fast forward to university. Again, a lecturer this time walked into the class and said, we're having a 5-day event where we're getting all these business moguls and entrepreneurs to come to Monash to give a talk. Yeah. We're looking for an MC. Anyone want to volunteer or not? So in typical Malaysian fashion, no one will volunteer, right? Then I was thinking to myself, like, oh, okay, maybe this might be good for my CV. Yeah. I said, miss, I'll do the event, but I cannot do for free. You must pay me. I told her, like, okay, you're spending your time. I told her, I got experience, but you must pay me.
Yeah.
Then she's like, okay, I pay you 50 ringgit. She said that. Then to me, okay, uni student bro.
Yeah, 50, like, hey, that's
wow,
big money, eh?
Big money. I was like, wow, 50 means for 1 week is 250 ringgit. I was thinking. Then I said, okay, miss, I can 250 ringgit for the week, I'll do it. She's like, no. I'm paying you 50 ringgit for the whole week, meaning 10 ringgit a day. She was paying me. I said, tappa lah, I'll do it lah. Yeah. So again, got my friend to come in, record the footage, and then we interviewed a lot of like entrepreneurs like Brian Liu from T-Life, Tan Sri, Jeffrey Chia was there as well. So, you know, sat down, moderated a panel. My friend recorded the footage, and this time what I did was I made a PowerPoint slide, put in all the content, all the photos there, and I put there Raj Mahal, MC extraordinaire, like so super like, you know, just like hype yourself up like mad. And I sent it to 100 event companies. Just like cold email them, cold call. And that's how the business started growing lah.
I mean, that's a good way to start the hustle.
You know, from those 100 emails I sent, only 2 replied. One I didn't get a chance to work with, but that one client is a long-time client until today.
See,
and
it pays off.
Just like that.
So kids, if you want to keep pushing, just do it. Just send 100 emails out there. Just do what it takes. Now, moving on to something else that you've been doing that maybe people do know, maybe a lot of people don't know. You dipped yourself into a rap game, sort of. Like, you've done quite a few raps, and the biggest being Hits.fm. I remember I got the press kit from Hits when you did it, and I was like, hey, this bugger doing rap now. I want to hear this. And actually, to be honest, not bad.
Thank you.
I was impressed.
I had no idea they sent out a PR kit, to be honest.
They did.
This was for the Baza Ulala song, was it? The Ramadan song, right? Yeah, I mean, dude, I love rap music. I love hip-hop. I think the first song that I ever remember hearing that, like, you know, awakened something within me was Where's the Love by Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, nice.
Right? But, you know, I've really enjoyed, like, freestyling back in school or, like, making songs and stuff. I've stopped now because I see the value in focusing on one thing at a time, right? But music is something I thoroughly enjoy, and I would like to explore it more seriously further on. But along the way, yes, we did do some songs here and there. I think the biggest song that went like the most viral was a song I did with a couple of my friends for Merdeka. I think this was about 2 years back. It was a Malay rap song where we talked about the challenges that Indians face in Malaysia.
Yes, I remember this. Yes,
Right?
yes.
So that had like, I think now it's about like maybe 9 million views plus. I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah.
But in just a span of 2 days, we hit the million views and it just started going like bigger and bigger and bigger. Until like politicians started reaching out,
Yeah.
invited us to their office to talk, and then I'm not going to mention which party, but one of the parties even offered us like money to go and perform at their events.
Damn, now I don't want to know which party this is.
We'll talk about it later, right? So there was a lot of political attention to that video as well. But all that aside, I think that video or that song is the one that I'm most proud of because for once we actually talked about the plight, the struggles that we're facing, and it was kind of surprising to see many people resonating with that as well.
What's your process when it comes to doing a song like that? Like, do you write it? Did your friend write it? Or
So for a song like that, I'm sure like different people have different processes. For me, it's finding a nice beat to work with. So we are still in the era of going to YouTube and searching so and so type beat, you know what I mean? Copyright free at the end, right? So, we'll sit down, we'll find a beat that we like. Then once we find a beat that we like, we think about what we want to rap about. And then usually it flows. It just like literally just flows. It helps if there's some emotion associated to it.
Yeah.
Like when I was writing the lyrics for that Merdeka rap song, it was when I first got my job at Hits. And when I got my job in radio, I started hearing like a lot of people were saying like, oh, Raj can become radio announcer, man. Like, oh, you think he can do such a thing? This one is all just like a cronyism or nepotism hire, like all kinds of stuff that people were just conjuring out of thin air.
Yeah.
And this were coming from people who I considered friends. So having that anger in my mind was the thing that really channeled the lyrics to come out.
Yeah.
Like I wrote those lyrics in like 10 minutes.
Really?
Yes, like 10 to 15 minutes. And then I refined it as we were recording, I just refined it here and there a bit, but it just flowed so effortlessly.
Damn.
I guess because we were doing it for a purpose,
Yeah.
much bigger than ourselves, lah. Like to like really like tell people like this is the stuff that you face. Your closest friends are the ones that are trying to bring you down, for example.
Understand.
So yeah, that's the story of, I guess, one of the pieces of work I'm most proud of.
Faham. Now, on top of the whole radio thing, the hosting, the rap, I think right now what you are most famous for at this point is your social media stuff. Because even though I follow you, I still see your social media stuff sponsored and things. I'm like, oh, Raj is on my feed again. I'm like, how did you get into the content creation game? Like, what inspired you to want to make these videos just for social media?
It started when I was about 21 or 22. I had a knee operation, a knee surgery, an ACL tear. So I was bedridden for almost 2 months. And throughout these 2 months, the only thing that kept me sane was watching Naruto from start to finish and watching this YouTuber. His name is Just Rain. He's a Canadian Punjabi YouTuber, not very active anymore.
Okay.
But it was Naruto to YouTube non-stop.
Okay.
And I was so entertained and so amazed by this guy on YouTube that I was like, yo, you know what? I want to be a YouTuber too. So I was still on my crutches after the 2 months. I started making YouTube videos then and there. So some of my earlier videos on YouTube, which is now privated because I cringe every time I look at it, you can literally see me in crutches as I'm shooting the video. So that's where I started. And then I started connecting with other Indian content creators in Klang Valley. And they all decided to come up with this talk show. In fact, it's, I guess, the first ever podcast before podcasting was a thing in Malaysia. This show was called Meeting with Machas.
Okay.
Right? So it's basically 5 Indian guys sitting on a couch talking about the most ridiculous things. And that show blew up. Like we were getting about like 180,000 views per episode on YouTube, which was like a really good number for a show of that format.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole social media game started lah. A brand started saying like, oh, we want to work with you. Can you come and act in our videos? So I started growing from there. And then I started experimenting with Instagram videos as well. And then Amen happened.
Yeah.
Right? So Amen, then even more brands wanted to start working and shooting more content on Instagram. But truth be told, I think at this stage of my life now is when I truly am focusing on building content. Because I think everything leading up to this was just experimentation. I was trying to understand who I was as a creator.
Yeah.
Before this, I think my intention of making videos was not a very, I don't know whether I want to say pure is the right word, but it maybe wasn't very aligned with me. Like, of course you make videos so you earn money. Okay, you make videos, you earn money. I like the product. Okay, make a video, fine. But now at this stage of my life, I understand that there's a lot of responsibility being a content creator because in a way, yes, you're an independent person, but you also do the role of what a media company does.
Yes.
When you share a food review, the food could taste horrible, but then here you are acting as if it's the best food in the world. Like, there's a bit of an ethics problem there, right?
Yeah.
So I think now in all stages of my life, I've truly discovered what I want to do with my content. It's a lot of learning now because I think at this stage of my life, I want to increase the production quality of my work as well. So there's a lot of discussion being done behind the scenes, a lot of learning and training on how to shoot content. And hopefully for the rest of the year, you guys are going to see like a new version of Raj and the kind of content that he makes that has never been explored before.
You've heard it here first. You're going to get Raj 2.0.
It's a ClapperCon exclusive.
Now, in your social media videos, you often feature your parents and your girlfriend.
Yeah.
How are they reacting to it? As in, like, do they enjoy being in it? Do you force them to be in it?
My dad loves it, bro. Yeah. Like my dad absolutely loves it. Whenever I tell him like, hey, Papa can come to my house or not, want to shoot a video, I was like, okay, when, what time, what do I wear? Like, he loves being in front of the camera. My mom also, I believe she likes it. I think she likes the idea of like, I see my son still coming to act in his video. I think she enjoys that. But she's like, I mean, slightly more reserved, but she's always going to be there. Like, she loves it. And my audience also loves it as well. My girlfriend used to act in a lot of my skits as well. But over time, I think it's a conversation we've had many times because I think I've become more of a private person over the years. And there are certain things that we have discussed, whether does she enjoy being in front of the camera or not. Because for me, it's like, yeah, of course, people like to see that kind of couple content, right? But now you also have to understand, yeah, you can get the views or people can enjoy it, but at what cost? At like, oh, I actually don't enjoy being in front of the camera, but we have to do it for the views. Like in the past, we might have been okay with that. But now we're like, there's 1,001 other things that we can shoot without sacrificing our own principles and our own values. So now my girlfriend helps me a lot. She is like, without her, I'll be gone case lah, bro. Like really, like she helps me a lot behind the camera. And some forms of content that we have been experimenting with is also like, she has a whole narrative going on behind the camera where she's like talking and like saying stuff, but she doesn't appear in front of the camera. Yeah. So yeah, that's like the dynamic of things that are going on right now, lah.
Like I don't know why, but the one video that always plays in my head that I remember so well is, I think there was a video that you did when your girlfriend has a period.
Yes,
and you're just coming in with different things, and I was like, oh, that is so relatable.
Yeah. Stuff like and that was the kind of video format we were experimenting with, her not being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Right? Because she makes content of her own. And not many people know this, right? She has a secret page, right, where she makes like totally unrelated content.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even show her face in this page. And some of her videos do so well that she gets like 3,000, 4,000 followers per post.
Nice.
Per post.
Damn.
And I am here like, 1 follower today. Yes, thank you. I hope you guys enjoy my content. So like it just shows that with content in this day and age, the sooner you find your authentic self, the easier it is to create content that you enjoy. And when you enjoy it, people see that as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Because as long as you're having fun, your audience will have fun with you.
Exactly.
That's the key to doing some good social media. Like there's a lot of videos out there which feel very short sendiri in that sense. But I feel the most authentic ones are the ones that people are going to latch onto because it becomes relatable.
Yeah.
That's the key to it.
Yeah.
Now, moving far, far away from all the radio stuff, I want to get into something that I've been meaning to ask you. It's beginning with D and followed by another D.
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons. Now, you are very active in the D&D community as well as the Magic the Gathering community. You are very massive in the tabletop RPG community. Was that something you've been doing since you were a kid? Did you grew up with it?
So Dungeons and Dragons now not so much anymore. I think there are other people in the community who are doing a lot of good work in growing it, but back when I was in college, dude, there was a campaign that a group of friends and I were running for an entire year, every Monday night. How much do you know about D&D?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, okay. So it was this super fun, exciting, weird campaign. It involves time traveling because the entire world is destroyed. So you had to travel through time to save it. And we were playing it with a group of stand-up comedians.
Oh,
which
nice.
was even more wild, bro. You know? So D&D was very big for me back in college. And recently I did take part in a bit of like one-shots, like one-off campaigns. But I spend most of my time with Magic the Gathering now. And so Magic the Gathering, I actually started playing while I was in secondary school. And back then, I had no money to buy my own cards. So I had a group of seniors in secondary school who sort of introduced me to the game. And I used to borrow their cards and go to the shop to play every Friday night. We'll take the train lah, bro. We'll save money, 1 ringgit 50 cents, take the train, walk, go to the shop to play. And I enjoyed the game a lot because, yes, there's a tactical aspect of it because it's like playing chess with trading cards, but there's also the imaginative aspect of it, like making a deck filled with dragons. So when I enjoyed that aspect of it, right? Like, oh, I'm summoning this dragon and it goes into a bigger dragon and so on. But what happened in secondary school was I went to the shop to play. And when you go and play at the shop, they give you like a random booster pack where you can crack like super rare cards. And I cracked a super, super rare foil planeswalker card, which is like a big thing. Okay. So I was so excited lah, bro. I was like, oh my God, like I cracked this card that everybody wants. In my excitement, I left my deck on the table, the pack of cards on the table. I turned around to talk to the guy at the counter. I turned back and it was all missing. All gone, dude. I still remember the pain till today, Nick. Like I
feel your pain.
You know, it's the pain of losing the deck and it's the pain of knowing, oh my gosh, I need to pay my friends back this amount of money and I don't have it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they were very understanding about it, but I stopped playing Magic back then. Now, fast forward 10 years, I get a job in radio and all that jazz. And this lady randomly messages me out of the blue from a PR company saying like, hey, I'm doing PR for Magic the Gathering. And someone told me that he used to play 10 years ago. Would you like to come and attend this event? And I was like, yeah, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Started to go for their events, fell in love with the game, started spending a lot of money on the game, no regrets. And now this is something I look forward to every Friday night without fail.
Yeah.
And also getting new players to come and enjoy the game as well, because I've seen how this game has helped me manage my stress and spend time with like-minded people. In fact, very recently, I traveled down to Singapore for an event that they had there. They had like an Assassin's Creed and Magic the Gathering collaboration. So I went down there to meet players there and just get to know more people and introduce them to the game lah. Yeah, so Magic the Gathering is a big thing for me.
Like, honestly, I don't know a lot about Magic the Gathering, but just watching your stories and watching your Instagram posts, I get excited about Magic the Gathering through you.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about it.
Hey, anytime you want to play, let me know, bro. I got a deck specially for you. Just come and play with me, bro.
Is it the Doctor Who deck?
How you know?
Anybody that talks to me always asks me, hey, do you play Magic the Gathering? No. Hey, there's a Doctor Who deck. I'm like, I know, but I don't play Magic the Gathering, but I know there's a deck, okay?
Yeah.
Now, you recently hosted a D&D event. But reason why I want to bring that up is because I couldn't stop laughing at the fact that you were hosting while having your lunch.
Yes.
What happened? Like...
Okay, so for full context, the D&D segment was actually hosted by another dungeon master.
Okay.
So I was hosting the entire event. It was the all aboard tabletop and gaming event lah. Organized by this company called the Magic Rain.
Yeah.
So I was hosting the event for them for both days, and the D&D slot got pushed a bit further back. All right. So I told the organizer, like, hey, is it okay if I just go and have my lunch quickly? And by the time I'm done, I can introduce a D&D event.
Yeah.
And people also didn't know I was a special guest for that event. So I came in like half an hour later. So I sat down and the sushi just arrived and I was about to eat and they were like, okay, we're going to start the event now. Raj, can you introduce? Then I'm like, hey, but I'm just about to makan, you know. Then they're like, it's okay, we'll get someone else to introduce. I'm like, no. It's my job, it's my responsibility. You just pass me the mic. And I just did it, bro. I just introduced and then everybody went up on stage and they started playing. And then halfway through, they were like, okay, we got a special guest coming up on stage. And I quickly ate my sushi and I ran up. And then we did the rest of the campaign together. But it's fun. It was very exciting. I haven't done that before, but it was fun.
I feel like you are slowly you might not agree with me, but you're slowly becoming a spokesperson for these games. Because undoubtedly, like you said before, you want to bring more people into it. And I think you using your influence that you have already from radio, from your content creation, it's a great way to get people to come play the game. How do you feel like, as a spokesperson, do you feel any pressure to get people into the game, or do you have to maintain a certain standard, or how do you feel being that kind of a person?
Well, I feel what I enjoy most is actually introducing the game to new players. Because I can understand veteran players or more experienced players, they want to come and play the game. And I don't blame them for that because they spend hours and days building the perfect deck. And when a beginner comes in, you got to spend time to teach them. It's not a very easy task to do so. For me, my priority is getting more people to come in. And I don't mind spending 30 minutes or so teaching them the game. And that is what I'm basically focused on, to be honest. So when I go for events, like the All Aboard event, and I see a new player like checking out, they're like, oh, what is Magic? Or I just bought my first deck, but I'm not sure how to play. I don't know why, it's like a very natural inclination to tell them like, hey, come sit down. I'll teach you within 20 minutes, whatever you need to know.
Wow.
Simply because I think one of the many reasons is I had that experience when I started playing. My friends took the time to teach me. And now I have a hobby which I can't imagine, not to sound like overly dramatic, but I can't imagine a life without playing Magic and like geeking out and nerding out with my friends every Friday night. And I think it's such a wasted opportunity if someone else doesn't get that as well. Because many people would enjoy the game, but just because they had a bad experience at the start with a certain player or whatnot, they're like, I don't want to play anymore lah. And then it's gone into the abyss.
Now, of course, talking about Dungeons and Dragons, this is a movie podcast. And of course, I'm going to ask you about the film itself.
Yes.
But before we get into that, we're going to take a quick break. And stay tuned because we're going to get into the movie section because this is a movie podcast after all. Keep watching. So how did you find the Dungeons and Dragons film? Did you enjoy it? Did you feel like you got the same feeling as you were playing the game?
It's going to be a surprise to you, Nick. I have not watched the movie yet.
You haven't seen Dungeons and Dragons?
For a very good reason.
Okay.
I'm afraid that the movie adaptation is not going to be good and it might affect my whole perception of Dungeons and Dragons in general.
Okay.
But I did collect all the Magic the Gathering collab cards.
Okay.
Right? With like Simon and Edgar and all that stuff. But I've not watched the movie. Did I make a good decision doing that?
Not really, because,
Not really.
Okay, I'll be straight up. I've never played D&D before,
Yeah.
so this might come from a very, like, movie perspective. I really enjoyed it. Like,
Really?
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I felt, oh, is this what it's like playing the game? Because it really felt like a tabletop game brought to life. It was fun, it had a lot of adventure, it had great humor in it. Chris Pine was fantastic in it. The whole cast was great. There were a lot of references. So I felt like it was a damn good film.
Was there any dice rolling in the movie?
No, there was
Then
no dice rolling.
It's nothing like D&D, bro. So it's not a good adaptation, right? Come at me.
There's no dice, therefore it's not a good film. You've heard it here first.
You know, I mean, of course, the references are there. Even from the trailer itself, you can tell, right?
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people need to understand about D&D as well is that it's a lot of theatre of the mind. Depending on your dungeon master, of course, but I think most of the dungeon masters here in Malaysia, it's theatre of the mind. So there is a lot of imagining things that are going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dice rolling to see whether you're successful or not in doing certain things.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of negotiation, right? But coming back to the movie, I know the movie references the lore very well.
Yeah.
So when you do play a game of D&D, you're going to recognize like, oh, I know that mimic, it was in the movie.
Yeah.
Or like, I see a treasure chest. I'm pretty sure it's going to be something else instead, right?
Yeah.
But then those little details the movie doesn't show lah.
I honestly would highly recommend you seeing it.
I
As
will
a
go and
person
watch
that plays D&D, you need to watch it. And also, Hugh Grant is great in it. Hugh Grant plays this very villainous role, over-the-top villainous role that I think was perfect for him.
Yeah.
But moving on to films, because at the end of the day, this is a movie podcast.
It is.
Did you grow up watching a lot of films? And what was the one film that imprinted on you since you were a child that you remember the most?
It has to be Attack of the Clones, bro.
I will not let this republic be split in two. My negotiations will not fail.
If they do, there aren't enough Jedi to protect the Republic. We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
Oh,
Star Wars.
okay.
There is a reason why I have such a strong emotional attachment, right? I see people behind the console, they're like, yeah.
Yeah, because Kelvin is here too, and we all know how big of a Star Wars fan Kelvin is, so he's gonna be overjoyed with that.
Dude, Attack of the Clones left like such a strong impression on me. I think it came out in 2002, if I remember correctly, but I watched the movie many years later after it came out. And I was just so amazed at the whole sci-fi element of it, the scale of the battles.
Yeah.
And that stuck. Like, it just stuck. And I'm like a die-hard Star Wars fan. I'm a bit upset, of course, with current happenings within the Star Wars universe.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Surprise!
Oh, surprise, surprise. Unhappy with the Star Wars universe?
No, can't be Raj. You're being too tough on it. Yeah. But it was Attack of the Clones that first time I was just watching it, and I remember my uncle came to my house a few days later, and then he brought me this Lego Luke Skywalker on Bespin set.
Oh, I remember that set,
Right?
yes.
And then I was like, so I called my uncle Mama. I'm like, Mama, who's this character? I didn't see him in episode 2. He's like, have you heard of episode 4, 5, 6? Oh, there's a rabbit hole, bro. There's a rabbit hole. So up until today, so I met my girlfriend like about 2 years plus ago, and she hasn't watched Star Wars before. And I was like, okay, let's start with the Clone Wars animated series.
You started her with the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we watched a few episodes,
Okay.
and then we started watching the movies, and then we went in like not a very chronological order, but now I'm proud to say that she's a diehard fan also.
Good job.
Yes.
Well done, Raj.
So yeah. So basically, I'm going to be with her for life, lah. Long story short.
Like I brought my wife had never seen any Star Wars whatsoever, and when Phantom Menace came out in recently, it came out in don't know whether it was IMAX, but it came out in cinemas, and I took her to watch it in 4DX. Dude, Phantom Menace, the pod racing scene in 4DX is a trip, bro.
Yeah.
But she got hooked on it, and now she wants to watch the rest of Star Wars. But I did warn her, I'm like, look, Attack of the Clones is great. It can get a bit boring here and there because there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of political talk in this. So was that your first introduction to Star Wars, Attack of the Clones, or was Phantom Menace your first introduction?
It was Attack of the Clones, and
Interesting.
then I did it in like a very non-chronological order, but only in the past 1.5 years, I've been rewatching everything with my girlfriend to properly absorb the essence of it. But I can do say, I know this is a movie podcast, but the animated series of the Clone Wars has some of the best storytelling in the entire Star Wars universe. Like truly, like the pain you feel watching the Jedi like Ahsoka and Anakin like going through everything with the clones all the way to the last few episodes when Order 66 was like activated.
Yeah.
The pain was... I cried, bro, watching that scene. Like, it
I can
was
imagine.
mad.
The animated series are sometimes even better than the 7, 8, and 9. J.J. Abrams.
What happened?
But the animated series, if y'all haven't seen them, I highly recommend them. I know Kelvin will highly recommend them and will probably give you a list of episodes to watch. So if you want to, privately message him because he has all the information there. But the animated series, similar to DC as well, because their animated films are much better than their live action films. Go and check those out. Those are all on Disney Plus. Go and see it now.
Yeah.
But moving on to the next question. When you watch a film, like what influences you to watch a film? Do you see a poster and go, oh, I want to see that? Or do you see the trailer and like, oh, I want to see that? Or do you just go into it blind?
So the genre is very important for me. I avoid rom-coms like the plague.
Why?
I just can't.
You can't?
I just cannot. But my girlfriend loves it, right? I love horror movies.
Okay.
I love action movies and sci-fi movies. Those are like my top 3 genres. So whenever a movie comes out which like fits that prerequisite, the next thing I look at is the actors.
Okay.
Of course, certain actors have a bit more weight to them, right? And I know, like, for example, when Ad Astra came out, the trailer might be like, oh, okay, what's this? Like, normal sci-fi movie. But the fact that Brad Pitt was the actor, I know that movie is going to have a certain weight to it. And true enough, it's one of my most favorite movies of all time.
What are you thinking about?
I do what I do because of my dad. He was a hero.
Right? So yeah, it's genre and also actors. Those are the 2 things that catch my attention. I stopped watching trailers recently.
That was the next question I was going to ask you. But yes, continue.
Right? Simply because I don't want to ruin my expectation of the movie. Like Deadpool and Wolverine, I barely watched any of the trailers. I see what Ryan Reynolds is doing, like promoting the movie. Like, okay, I'll see some of his stuff. Some of the press junkets, yes, but last final trailer came out 3 hours ago. I'm not going to touch it.
That's impressive because that trailer was everywhere. You couldn't avoid the Deadpool and Wolverine trailers. But I understand what you're talking about because I know a lot of people as well that be like, I don't want to see any trailer. I don't want it spoiled for me. I don't want to know anything about it. I know this person is in it. I'll watch it for that. I personally, I love to watch the trailers because it gets me pumped up for it.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Although there has been this trend recently of trailers showing way too much.
Yes.
Like there are some trailers that are cut where you don't need to see the film. It's their beginning, middle, and end. It's in the trailer. And I'm like, why do you do that? But honestly, coming back to Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, by the way, we're filming this literally 2 days before Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. Hey, no. One day, it comes out tomorrow. I'm super pumped for that, man.
Yeah. I think what Marvel did really well for their previous movies is adding all these fake scenes in the trailer.
Yes.
So like props to them, like, for throwing people off like
I think
track.
that's genius.
Right? Long Legs. Have you watched that movie?
Not yet, but I really want to go and watch that.
Is it scary being a lady FBI agent?
Yeah.
Take a nice long look.
So the trailer was fantastic, dude. Because I think what the trailer did really well was they made you feel what the movie was going to be like without revealing too much of the plot. And I think Long Legs is a really like artistic horror movie. So I watched the full trailer and both like, my whole family was there for the movie. They were like, oh yeah, the trailer looks really good. It's going to be a good movie. Nicolas Cage is in it, but the movie itself didn't deliver. So I feel like trailers with me, it's always nice to see it, to get excited, but then my expectation just gets a bit muddled.
I understand.
Right?
I understand that.
But I always watch trailers after I watch the movie to get the full impact of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you drawn to any particular directors? Like if you see their film, you're like, I have to watch this film.
I put in a lot of thought to this question. Right? 2 directors come to mind. I'm a huge fan of Malaysian movies. And Shamsul Yusof, who is the person that directed movies like Munafik, for example, or even more famously, Mat Kilau. Right? He is really pushing the boundaries of Malaysia filmmaking. That's what I truly feel. And I like the kind of movies he makes because it touches on a lot of things which I'm interested in. For example, the paranormal or the importance of religion per se. All those topics and all those movies are things that I watched growing up and I've seen happen to people around me. For example, like Munafik talks about, being very careful when it comes to practicing black magic, for example. Like when you practice black magic, these are the things that are going to happen to you.
Jangan sia-siakan kelebihan yang Allah beri kepada kamu.
Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar.
And I've seen stuff like this happen growing up.
Damn.
Right? and not with my family, thankfully, but people around me.
Okay.
So to see that being consolidated in a movie form, I guess there's a bit of nostalgia in it as well. So I think a lot of props to him for representing that in his movies.
Okay.
I have to support local. Like this is very important to me.
Of course.
On an international scale, I think Christopher Nolan, his movies make me feel something, dude. Like, I have a lot of respect for his method of filmmaking. He's a very practical person.
Yeah.
In all sense, right? He prefers practical effects,
Yes.
right? Doesn't use visual effects.
We're going to simulate the actual bomb.
Yes, right? Like Tenet, for example, there was a scene where they had the Boeing 747 crashing into the airport.
Yes.
He
That was all
crashed the
practical,
plane.
yes.
Bro, like, can you imagine?
I mean, not even that. He even got his actors to fight backwards. Yeah.
Like, so much of respect for that, honestly.
That is true.
Even if I remember correctly, The Dark Knight Rises, there's a scene where Bane and his henchmen like hijack the CIA plane.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was all practical.
All practical, dude.
Yeah.
No! They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother.
Have we started the fire?
Yes. The fire rises.
So such a pragmatic filmmaker.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I relate to that mindset and that philosophy to a certain extent, because when you do things with practical effects, it just feels different.
Exactly.
It's like, I know this is going to be like a poor analogy, but if you have a fake plant in your house or a real plant, you can feel the difference.
No, I agree with you. Like, I've always said that I prefer practical effects over CGI because there's something so real about it. CGI, yes, you can get away with a lot more, especially within the superhero genre. But sometimes there are certain things that you're like, if you can film it practically, why don't you go and do it? A great example of that is recently Twisters. Like I was telling you, we talked about this on our podcast, is the fact that they used a lot of practical effects. So much so that I didn't realize this after we recorded it. Some of the tornado sequences as well, they actually did that practical effect. Like, I don't know how, but they simulated tornadoes to actually film a tornado with the wind and everything. And I'm like, no wonder it feels so real.
Wow.
That's the difference between practical effects and CGI.
Yeah, Sharknado, you should have done that, man. Get like real sharks in a tornado.
That's what we've been saying. Come on, it can be done. Just do it, Hollywood. Sharknado. Best film of all time.
Yeah. and you know, so coming back to Christopher Nolan, right?
Yes.
And I think like the themes that he talks about, right? And just his eye, you know, it's like very moody colors. There's a lot of men in suits, so it's like, it's like very like clean, you know. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool, it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
And one thing I really like, I guess, about the way he directs his movies is he plays around with the concept of time really well.
Yes.
With Tenet, like, oh my god, like the whole movie's about time, literally.
Memento as well.
Yes, Inception.
Yes.
Right? He just knows how to, like, I wouldn't say trick the viewers, but take them on a journey and then reveal something they wouldn't expect at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really cool how he does that.
So I just want to come back to, I'm glad you talked about it because I love to talk about local films as well. You're talking about Shamsul Yusuf.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of local films that stand out in your mind, like you would recommend for people to watch? Because in this day and age, especially with our industry, there's a lot of hits and misses, especially with the mainstream films. And I'm always trying to educate people that, hey, sure, some of the stuff we put out is garbage, but there are also some real gems there. Is there any that stands out in your head?
So my answer to this question is going to be, I would say, emotionally fueled to a certain extent because I like this genre. Other people might say that this movie is not up to their standards, but when I watched it, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay.
Munafik was one of it, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
Pascal was, I think, a very, very strong attempt. I believe the director is Adrian Tay, right?
Yeah.
It was a very, very strong attempt at pushing the level of these military movies in Malaysia.
Yes.
So I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I really, really did. Of course, I think maybe my patriotism might be like a big thing for me. So to watch like our soldiers in action, that kind of movies really get to me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I really enjoyed that movie, man. And I'm like, look, if the director can make this kind of movie in this year, you know, give him a few more years, imagine what else they can do to like push this level even higher.
Exactly.
People might argue and say, oh, this is nothing compared to Hollywood or what, but Hollywood, we are playing with different kind of budgets, right? And you have to understand that what they're doing is already a step up from many other things they've done in the past. So show them a bit of support lah.
Yeah, no, because honestly, the last 2 years, we've had a lot of good Malaysian films that have come out. Films like La Luna, Imagine Noor, Pascal, Sheriff recently as well. So I feel like our standard is hopefully rising, and we'll get more films like this, because honestly there are some great filmmakers in Malaysia and great stories that need to get told. And I feel like maybe one day we might be on the international stage.
Sure, I'm praying for that. But and at the same time, we can admit, I won't say any names, there are some movies which are dog shit, bro.
Pulau.
Bro, like I'm like so sorry, but how can you put out a movie without naming names lah? You all read between the lines lah. Okay? Like how? And then when people give negative feedback about the movie, which, I mean, you're in this industry, you have to be ready to receive it also lah.
Yes.
Then it becomes a big issue.
Yeah, I've known some directors, not naming names, but I'm pretty sure people in the industry who are watching this know who these people are.
Yeah.
They complain that, because the critics don't favor it well, that's why my film does badly. I'm like, no, you just made a bad film. That's all you got to do. But okay, moving forward from Malaysian films, if there was any film that would be like your go-to comfort film to just sit back, relax, and you know you're going to have a good time, what would it be?
Comfort film. So I have this rule that I don't like to rewatch movies.
Why?
Simply because the thrill, like the dopamine hit from knowing what's going to happen next, it just takes away from the experience.
Okay.
Unless it's a few years later, then I'm okay to rewatch it, because by then I would have forgotten like key elements. So I don't really have like a comfort movie which I always go back to.
Okay.
But certain genres, like I said before, do make me feel like excited. Action especially. But if there's a movie which I don't mind watching like every year, for example, stuff like The Godfather, for example.
Nice.
You know,
Good
that's
choice.
like a classic, dude. Like,
We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me for counsel, for help. I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee. Even though my wife is godmother to your only child.
beautiful acting, beautiful sets, and the message, you know, the way they carry themselves, like those kind of movies. Like when I think of it, I'm like, it's just a very good feeling to it, lah.
And on the flip side of that, is there any film that you have gotten so sucked into and the story that you think about it for days on end?
Oh, a lot lah, bro. A lot of movies. A lot. Like, I could name like so many off the top of my mind. Like Sicario was like such a good movie. So well executed lah.
And the sequel was even better as well.
Yes! Which is such a hard thing to achieve, right?
Yeah,
With
Deo
sequels.
Soldado was great. I mean, that final sequence when they were at the dinner table with
Yes!
Benicio del Toro. Oh, perfection.
Oh, you know, Sicario is like one that keeps on like coming up in my mind.
Every night, you have families killed. And yet, here you dine. Tonight should be no different.
Ad Astra really stuck with me for two reasons. Number one, I think it's such a beautiful movie about a relationship between father and son, where the son literally goes to the edge of the universe or the galaxy to look for the father, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really beautiful. But number two is that space travel is growing now, like in the reality we live in.
Yeah.
And I think Ad Astra shows it in the most realistic way possible.
Okay.
On the moon, you're going to have like shopping mall looking places with advertisements.
Yeah.
You are going to travel in like this buggy across, and if there's a base on Mars, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's the most realistic interpretation of what traveling in outer space is going to be. And I think that's why it like left such an impression on me.
If you had to choose one, just one, for people that they have to watch in their lifetime, what would it be?
I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this, but I'm asking like this, my inner self, right? What movie to recommend? And it keeps on being Ad Astra, bro.
Okay.
Not even Star Wars, because like even though I love Star Wars, but I feel like you can't like find your love for Star Wars. It'll come and find you. You know, like,
Well,
like
that's a very good way of putting
you
it.
know, like, because other people are like, oh, what's this movie? The fella got a shiny sword. Like, they won't understand, but you just got to like watch it and then something's going to happen. It's going to hook you in. But the reason why I say Ad Astra is because I think that's like such a good representation or foreshadowing of what the future is going to become. There are many little details in the movie. For example, the commercialization of the moon. They don't talk about it, but they show it. And they show all kinds of nonsense that is happening on the moon. There are bandits there who are like fighting for resources. I truly believe that's a very good idea of what's going to happen in the future. So be prepared for that.
Okay.
By watching the movie.
So Raj's recommendation, Ad Astra. Go and see it now. I'm not sure which streaming platform it's on, but find it. Go Google it. You'll find it. Thank you so much again, Raj, for coming onto the show. It has honestly been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. Before we leave, where can we all find you?
I'm on Instagram now most of the time at Raj Mahal Bro. If you guys have already been following me, thank you so much for following me. If you haven't yet, stay tuned. We got some pretty exciting stuff coming soon.
And you can always follow Clappercorns at Clappercorn, because I've taken off the S. We used to be called Clappercorns and now we're Clappercorn.
Clappercorn.
So follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. And before you leave, who do you think we should invite next?
To talk about movies. Ooh, maybe a director would be interesting, bro.
Director.
A Malaysian director.
Shamsul.
That'd be fun. Or maybe Adrian Taylor. It'd be fun. Yeah. And then make sure you invite me also. I'll just be sitting behind the computer.
We'll give you a personal seat right there. Nice and comfy with an armchair just to sit and relax.
Yeah. Or maybe the guys from Goggler.
Oh, that's already in the cast. Don't worry. The guys from Goggler are going to be here at some point. Don't worry about that. Thank you so much again, Raj, for coming. Take care. Go follow all the social media. And until next time, keep watching the movies.